Bella a tutti ragazzi e bentornati sul mio canale. Come butta, sono Sottone per le lingue, vengo dagli Stati Uniti e oggi parleremo della lingua italiana, otherwise formerly known as pasta language, heterosexual French, Vaticanese, Mario and Luigi language, or discount Latin. This is the 10th episode of Language Review, a series where I go through the languages of the world and review them, sort of like a film critic or a video game reviewer, but for languages, specifically from the perspective of a language learner. I'll discuss who speaks them, their grammar, their difficulty, and tons of other stuff before finally giving them an official Language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale. If you enjoy this video, let me know in the comments which language you'd like me to review next, and without further ado, andiamo!
Oh, Italy, I want to go there so bad. I love breadsticks and Italian men.
Shut up, Italy's not even real. Let's talk about some big boy countries. Italian is mainly spoken by 764 people in the most humongous country in the universe that's basically the size of an entire real football field. Città del Vaticano, or Vatican City if you say it normally. I still can't believe this city is just as much of a country as the USA, Palestine, or China. They must do something really important there. Maybe they're good at esports. But Mario and Luigi language is also spoken in another ginormous nation that I'd bet my life on becoming a superpower by the end of this decade. San Marino, which is home to over 33,000 heterosexual French speakers. There are also over 500,000 Italian speakers in Switzerland, aka neutral cheese land, mainly in this tail penetrating the Great Void which surrounds Vatican City and San Marino to the south. And the greatest nation on earth, Albania, is also pasta-pilled with a sizable number of Italian-speaking residents.
But Italy, Logan, what about the Italians? Where are they?
Oh, well, they're in New Jersey and New York. That's where the real Italians are anyway. Italian Americans. And not just in those states. There are actually more Italian speakers in the USA than there are in the 3 prior countries combined. Then there's Argentina. I know they technically speak Spanish and German, but has anyone ever gone down there and made sure they're not actually speaking Italian? So in total, there are only about 63 million NPCs who speak discount Latin as their native language, which means learning it will only unlock you a moderate amount of DLC.
Chiudi quella fogna di bocca, zitto! Talk about Italy, come on!
Fine, alright, fine, there's no void. There is a country with a moderately attractive president sticking out of Europe into the Mediterranean Sea named Italy, but I was hoping I could avoid discussing it in this episode. Partly because it's really overhyped by monolingual Americans whose only travel destinations in their lives are Florida and Italy, and partly because Italian spoken in Italy is really complicated to explain. Italy is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the universe, with tons of different dialects, or languages, or dialects. It's really confusing to try to classify them. But the dark truth is that standard Italian, the language that 99% of learners are going to study, is a conlang, or constructed language like Esperanto or Klingon.
No!
Wake up and smell the coffee. The Italian language is not even real. But before I explain this dark conspiracy, allow me to introduce you to Lingoda, who I'd like to thank for sponsoring today's video. Lingoda is an online language school that offers effective and affordable classes in Italian, as well as German, French, Spanish, English, and even business English. And starting now through November 18th, registrations are open for their intensive 30-day course called the Lingoda Sprint, which is perfect for people who want to build a daily learning habit and stay motivated. And if you use my link in the description, you can get up to 20% off in addition to $25 off if you use code LanguageSimp25. This challenge is so effective at keeping you motivated because if you attend 15 classes within the 30 days of the Lingoda Sprint, you'll get 50% of your money back, or you can choose 15 more free classes for successfully completing the challenge. Or if you're a GigaChad and choose the Super Sprint, you will get 30 free lessons if you successfully complete 30 classes within the 30 days of the challenge. I'm happy to endorse Lingoda because their class sizes are super small, maximum 5 people, which from my experience means you get a ton of personal attention and feedback from native level certified teachers. The classes are incredibly interactive. You can book classes 24/7 and you can sort them based on your level as well as the topics you want to discover. Click the link in the description and sign up for the Lingoda Sprint today, but act fast because registrations close on November 18th. Go get your up to 20% off and don't forget to use code code LanguageSimp25 to get an additional $25 off. Now it's time for me to mansplain to you the Italian conlang conspiracy. Sit tight, it's a lot of history, but I'll talk fast and put something on screen so you don't get bored. You see, 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang happened. Then in 27 BC, the Roman Empire began, and the Roman people spoke a lovely little language called Vulgar Latin, until some Germans came and ruined the fun. Typical. Latin got pregnant with tons of babies and then shot them out all over Europe, and they grew up into big, strong, diverging Romance languages, a shit ton of similar ones being spoken on this peninsula. Then Italy became a thing, but everyone inside spoke different languages, or dialects, I don't know, no one seems to know what to call them. Then some dude named Dante went through a nether portal and wrote about his adventures in one of those languages, specifically the Florentine variety of the Tuscan dialect. His yapping about hell went viral around Italy. Then over time, more dudes came and wrote other big works in this same Florentine variety of the Tuscan dialect, making it rather popular. Then in 1861, Italy was like, "Cazzo, our own people don't understand each other, we need a standardized language." And since everyone simped over those fanfics written by Dante and the other looks-maxed writers, they were like, "Okay, dope, let's create a standard Italian based on that famous Florentine variety of the Tuscan dialect." So standard Italian, what someone means when they say, "I want to learn Italian," is just a conlang inspired by the Florentine Tuscan Italian dialect made up by some Dante stans in order to create one unified Italian language. So in the modern day, pretty much every region still has its own distinct language, which for some reason Italians call dialects, even though they're really separate languages. But most people also speak standard Italian, but that standard Italian is going to differ depending on their region as well as whichever language is native to it. Does that make any sense? Ugh, the devs really need to patch that. So what do people from different parts of Italy sound like? Well, to start, there's a huge north versus south divide, and all you need to know is that anyone below this line is a lot nicer and sounds way cooler than anyone above this line. And also, every region of Italy hates one another. People from the north, specifically in Milan, sound very rich and posh like a pretentious Londoner, and they use way too many American words. While people from Venice are more likely to use blasphemous swears, and they sound French the way they drop the pronunciation of half of every word. Also kind of reminds me of Dutch cause canals. Then people from South Tyrol speak German Italian. Tuscan is the closest to modern standard Italian, but they inherited a glitch where they screw up the ka sound and say them as H's. So they say ho-ha-hola instead of Coca-Cola. Romans sound like they're speaking Argentinian Spanish to me, and people have told me they sound kind of loud and rude and like to abbreviate things too much. Sometimes their L's turn into R's, which is giving major Asian vibes. Neapolitan Italian is extremely pleasing on the ears and is by far the most beautiful dialect of this language spoken in the most beautiful region of Italy. It sounds aggressive in a good way and it gives mafia vibes. But Sicilian Italian is the true Italian of the mafia. They're funny, loud, and swear a lot. No one knows what people from Basilicata sound like or if they even exist. It reminds me of Bielefeld in Germany. People from Sardinia sound like rural shepherds who pronounce their vowels really long. And finally, this island should be part of Italy, just saying. There's so many other regions, but let's be honest, Italians all just sound like stereotypical Italians you see in movies. Now let's talk about the writing system. The Italian language is written in a bootleg version of the American alphabet with 21 letters instead of the 26 found in nature. But they really have 20 because the H is always silent, which is a good thing for me because I struggle with H sounds like The Italians decided to drop the J and K because they never tell jokes, and they yeeted out the W, X, and Y because, let's be honest, those letters are kinda ugly, even though 2 of them make up half the word sexy. But don't worry, the missing letters are still used in some foreign words like jeans, kamikaze, and you're gay. And thank God those exceptions exist because those are some of my favorite things in the world. They also have 2 nice looking sticks that levitate on top of vowels and can denote where the stress is on a word. One is the acute accent, which is like a slide if you go down it from right to left. And the other is the grave accent, which is like a slide if you go down it from left to right, and these can signal if a vowel is supposed to have a closed or open pronunciation respectively. But everything sounds open to me in Italian, so I have no idea what that means. Yo, cool it with the gang signs. Oh, pronunciation is peculiar in Italian because unlike other Romance languages, if you want, you can speak Italian only using your hands. Not only is it a conlang, but it's also a sign lang. You may think that Italians are just expressive and flamboyant, flopping their hands around constantly like a fish out of water, but what if I told you that these famous gestures actually make sense and have meaning to them? Let me teach you a few easy ones, but be careful as some meanings can change depending on the region. In the South, this means no. But in the North, this means get lost. And this means nice to meet you. And I'm sure you've all seen this one. Do you know what it means? In the North, it means que voy, or what do you want? But in the South, it means I've got two gifts behind each of these hands, and you need to pick one to get the corresponding gift. Go ahead, choose one. 3, 2, 1. If you pick this one, you got 1,000 Vietnamese dong. Congrats. But if you got this one, you won an American green card, which will eventually become a passport. These hand gestures are so important that when two Italians text each other, they include emojis in order to represent them. But texting is cringe, guys. Get a life and talk to people IRL. And I know a lot of you don't have hands, so let's talk about how the spoken language sounds. The Italian language sounds extremely stereotypically Italian. It's open, loud, expressive, upper class, and performative. Italian people will get mad if you imitate their language like, "It's a me, Mario, sto parlando italiano," but that is literally exactly how they speak. And frankly, I love it. I can't get enough of Italian. I think it's awesome, and I definitely will learn it within the next few years. I think it's one of the most beautiful languages on the planet. Every time an Italian opens their mouth, they sing. It's incredible. The language sounds like Mexican, except you sing it, and that's why I consider Italian to be a tonal language like Chinese or Yoruba. And speaking of Italian singing, I really like Italian music. And I also firmly believe that Italy has the third most beautiful national anthem after those of the United States and Saudi Arabia. Italian has very open phonetics, the polar opposite of how French is spoken, and for that reason it has to be one of the easiest languages to pronounce on the planet, and it's so much fun. The only problem is that monolingual betas are often too afraid to lean into the stereotype and get all pizza pasta, boopity boppity, Mario and Luigi with it. But as long as you stick to the bit, you'll practically have no accent. It's not terribly difficult for Americans to pronounce, but if we don't try hard enough, we tend to sound like Gorlami. Gorlami. But don't get me wrong, there are still some aspects of Italian pronunciation that you will struggle with. Like, first of all, what the heck sounds are these supposed to make? If you think they're gn and gl, you're wrong. This one is easy, it just looks weird. Drop the G and make the N spicy, like nya nya. But this one is impossible, and it's found in this very common word. Again, drop the absolutely worthless G and say something like L. Shit, I sound Swedish. I don't know, every time that I feel like I'm saying it right, Italians make fun of me and tell me I'm absolutely butchering it. There are also consonants that, when doubled, can completely change the meaning of a word. You basically have to purposefully lag on the consonant and say it twice. It's o 26 anni with one N, not o 26 anni with two. But promise me you won't Google those words. You definitely don't need them at the start. The first words you should learn when you decide to study pasta language are attenzione pickpocket, which you'll hear a lot if you're going to visit any of the big cities. If you're going to visit the countryside, you could learn ciao, which means ciao, but that was stolen from the Vietnamese. So maybe just settle for buongiorno, which is a scuffed version of bonjour, meaning howdy partner. The Mona Lisa is French. In fact, I would say that Italian is a clear mixture of French and Spanish, which makes it really easy for me to understand because I've studied both of those languages. Let's dissect a sentence in Italian so I can show you what I mean. Io non voglio mangiare la pizza, which means I don't want to eat the pizza. We've got io, which is basically the same as yo in Spanish, meaning I. Non, which is the same way you negate something in Spanish, just with an added N. Voglio, which is similar to v, meaning want in French. Mangiare, which is suspiciously similar to the French manger. La, which also means the in both Equatorial Guineese and Democratic Republic of the Congolese. And finally, we have the famous dish made of sauce, bread, cheese, and pineapples invented in New York and perfected in Chicago. Some people claim that pizza comes from Italy, but this is definitely not amore. This is amore. Did you know that Italy has no Pizza Huts? Cazzo, I should open one there. Any Italian women want to get me a green card and get rich with me? In general, I love Italian words because they're a lot more demure than their counterparts in other Romance languages. Grazie is a much more mindful version of the Mexican gracias. Same with per favore. Like, who are y'all trying to impress? A lot of unique words have their own unique flavor, specifically the ones with a CH in them like Ginocchio, Pinocchio, and Pistachio. know. I honestly don't know. How do you say that? I mean, it's pistachio in American, but I think it's pistacchio or something. And Italian names are more lit than a burning trash can in an American city. Like, who named these dudes? Cristoforo Colombo, Galileo Galilei, Marco Polo. Oh, and Mark Zuckerberg. But as cool as Italian words are, Italian grammar is not that cool. First of all, for a language that only has 2 genders, Italian has way too many articles. The definite article the in English can be translated to il, lo, la, le, I, l, and even L apostrophe. The indefinite articles are a bit better, but still busted with un, uno, una, and un apostrophe. I've never seen a language so obsessed with gendered articles. They even add them on possessive pronouns, like God forbid if you want to say my Xbox, you have to say la mia Xbox or the my Xbox. And some nouns can even transition their gender when made plural. We all know that words that end in O in any language are boys, and words that end in A in any language are girls. So please explain to me why 1 finger is a dude and 2 fingers are chicks. And if you want to be respectful in Italian, you have to call everyone a woman. These are the pronouns in heterosexual French. Everything looks pretty normal, and I'll admit, loro is the coolest way to say they that I've ever seen. But you see this lei, meaning she? That's also what they use as the formal singular you pronoun. So even if your male boss is a super hairy 6'5" gigachad like me, you have to look him dead in the eyes and say, she. But at least the conjugations are easy, as there's only 21 of them. Okay, that's actually a lot. And unlike other Romance languages, apparently all of these tenses are still pretty commonly used, including some nasty subjunctive tenses. Thankfully, there's a decent pattern with 3 different standard verb endings and not too many irregulars. Just the normal gang of troublemakers like to be, to have, to come, and to die. Now it's time to talk about shock factor. How will native Italians react to you speaking their language as a foreigner? Well, no one really learns Italian. When someone wants to learn a Romance language, they typically choose baguette or Mexican or sometimes even Bolsonaro language. So if you speak decent Italian, they'll be pleasantly surprised. They might not spontaneously combust or give you a free car or anything like Chinese speakers would, but they will compliment you and offer you a warm pineapple pizza. So many people go to Italy every year and can only say buongiorno and grazie. So if you can string together a few more sentences, they'll give you a good reaction. They won't go as far as to do a backflip, but maybe you could squeeze a front flip out of them. But who cares what native speakers have to say? The real reason we learn Italian is to alphamog people who don't speak Italian. Like I promise that if you go on a date to Olive Garden and you start calling shit rigatoni, mozzarella, and the bread stick, your date will fall in love with you and the other beta males in the restaurant will evaporate. There's so much more I could say about pasta language, but it's late here in Afghanistan and I need to go to bed, so it's time to give Italian an official Language Simp certified rating on the Simp scale. On a scale of dog water to Giga Chad, I place Italian firmly in the alpha tier. I think Italian is one of the most beautiful languages in the Milky Way galaxy, and it's super underrated. Yeah, it's much less useful on a global scale than French, Mexican, German, or Russian, but I'd argue it's one of the most fun languages to speak. It sounds stereotypical, but that's a good thing. There's a reason why everyone wants to visit Italy. It's a beautiful country with interesting history and a rich conlang. It's slightly more complicated than other mainstream Romance languages, but that's not saying much. And if you already speak a Romance language, you could learn Italian in like 12 seconds. The moment, and I mean the exact moment, that a Pizza Hut opens in Italy, I will start learning Italian. Domenica de Coco. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon where I teach you how to learn a language. Come join me there for just $3 a month so I can personally help you achieve your polyglot dreams. Che non mi faccia mai cambiare idea sulle cose, sulla gente. Avrei